that is not their work, that's not their way. I'm like, if you wanted to keep doing that, you could have made money off a piece, but you don't want to make money. I don't know why y'all feel like y'all have to just kill and destruct. It's crazy. It's insanity.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Sunnyside podcast. My name is Giziribtah and I'm one of your hosts.
I'm Nehez Meniooh.
And I'm Kasabez.
We're so happy to have you. We have a wonderful episode scheduled for you today. We have the one and only Marquinn McDonald. He is a martial artist and he is really astute in so many of the martial artist techniques, as well as community activism, self-defense, community organizing, so many things that you want to stick around to hear about his expertise.
Let's break it down a little bit. Our brother Marquinn, the sensei of Chicago, he is the president of the Watchguard Community Patrol Group, as well as vice president of his block club here in the Bronzeville neighborhood. He's been studying martial arts since he was, 9 years old? Seven. Ooh. And, right now he's just about, ready and trained to break a foot up in your behind, because he also competes and fights competitively in various different styles.
But we're not talking to him about breaking a foot off in your behind.
Yes.
We are talking to him because we all are concerned about the violence in Chicago, and he's going to bring you some ways to defend yourself, defend your family, and some practical ways that you can get involved with protecting your community. So stay tuned.
Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town, Chicago, Chicago, I'll show you around.
The corner was our magic, our music, our politics. Fires raised as tribal dances and war cries broke out on different corners. Power to the people.
And just say Shot City. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about Shot Town. And just say Shot City, Shot City.
In case you all missed it, we are just coming off of a great episode with our executive director, Meniooh. We just celebrated 25 years of Giziribtah in the U.S., so we are very excited. And if you haven't had a chance to check that episode out, please do so.
Celebrating 25 years all year. This is a great milestone for us, and we're excited to be bringing you more coverage about this milestone in future episodes. But for right now, we're going to be getting into some new territory.
The calendar that Giziribtah brought forth as a dynamic organization from traditional Africa was the original Kemetic calendar, however you want to refer to it. And we just entered a new month.
The month is called Imhir, and you see here the ancient Egyptian deity Heru, or also known as Horus. So, yes, and to tell you a little bit about Heru in this calendar, Heru was born premature and he can be seen as fragile, and as humans we identify with him in this aspect. Those who fight for justice and the righting of wrongs are living in the image of Heru. So in that spirit, we're bringing to you a new series in our podcast. We'll be talking about community protection.
Now, we all know how important that is in Chicago. We all know the issues we face with violence in Chicago, with gun violence, with, just the safety that we feel walking the streets, allowing our children to be out in the city. So this will be an important series.
We're very excited to have you, and we are looking forward to you tuning into the entire lecture or the entire podcast series on this very important topic, community protection.
And community protection is, we'll talk about it in terms of Chicago and put it in very practical terms for how, what people in Chicago are doing that can serve you, that you can benefit from. But community protection, community defense is a long tradition, and we will get into some of that too later on in the episode.
Yeah, whether it's talking about in the diaspora or on the continent of Africa, the maroon territories of Jamaica or Brazil, the Quilombos and all these things, we'll be talking about those things later, and even some of the hunter societies that we don't get to hear too much about in Africa as well.
And before we get to the episode, we want to bring you our proverb for this episode, which is, when you see a child throwing rocks at people in the marketplace, know that he has a father at home.
Yeah, because if you beat his ass, you know, you're going to have to deal with his father on the back end, you know. So it's an important proverb to think about, you know, solidarity, you know. If you have a little badass kid, then, you know, you're going to have to be having to stick up for him, and that's just what it is.
And it's important too because
understanding of the proverb. Wait a minute.
It's important too because Kasabez might be getting met by CPS right after we tape. But no, it's important too because our protection really comes in the systems that are behind us, and the first system that's behind everybody is the family.
Yes.
And, you know, we definitely have to cover the breakdown of the family and how to strengthen families, but that'll be in a future series. But the other systems that are behind us, the neighborhoods, the communities we're a part of, the cities, the clans, whatever we are really a part of, that stands up for us when we're in trouble, that stands up for us when we're not safe. That's really where our strength lies.
And in the interview with the brother Marquinn, he even got to talk about the strength that he had growing up with his family and how they protected him, in addition to the family that he himself is raising that he has to protect now.
The one that many of us have lost, but we have remnants of it, and we want to be able to bring that back, because the people who are feeling so threatened and just frustrated from all the community violence because of the breakdown of the family, because of the breakdown of community, we do have actual techniques and things that we can do to put in place to re-harmonize ourselves with the communities that serve us.
Definitely.
That's for future episodes, but in this episode, we're going to be right back with Brother Marquinn McDonald for this great interview. You know, stay tuned. This is a dynamic brother, and you don't want to miss what he has to say.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Giziribtah again, and we want to introduce to you our honored guest, Marquinn McDonald. We talked about him a bit before, and we are very honored to have him because he has a very long and rich history. Don't let the young face fool you, but almost a 40-year history in martial arts, protecting the Chicagoland community, as well as enlightening us on how we can do the same for our families and communities as well. I can't even begin to give you his biography and his chart of accomplishments. I think he started his career almost 40 years ago in martial arts, and he's been doing great things, mentoring children, helping women in self-defense, also mentoring men and helping people have their mental faculties be more focused and developed through the craft of martial arts. Not only that, he has been the president of several organizations, been spearheading organizations, teaching people about the importance of being like a village to the community. And that's something that we really want to get into and hear more about. So without further ado, Mr. McDonald.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm glad you said young face. I took some pictures not too long ago, and you know, my wife and I went to look at them. I was like, man, I look about 85 in this. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, I need to change my diet. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been studying martial arts for 38 years. Mm-hmm. I started when I was 7, and my mother saw that I had a lot of energy, and I also had a temper. My father, unfortunately, at that time he was in and out of my life. Mm-hmm. So he spent a lot of his life in his later years, during the time I was born, incarcerated. And so I had a few male mentors in the family, but our family is dominated by women. You know, very, very strong, and I want to say very strong women. I'm not just saying that, they ain't no joke. You know, I'm coming from the South, and my grandmother really, you know, I generally say my uncle, because my uncle was my first instructor, but it wasn't until this moment, like seriously, just thinking about it, something clicked. Maybe the ancestors are speaking to me. And my grandmother was the one that implemented he needs to know how to protect himself piece. Because she came from Greenville, South Carolina. And Greenville apparently has, you know, if you know the history or anything about Greenville. So she saw some things. And, you know, my grandmother was, you know, very fair-skinned. You know, she passed as a white woman throughout the years. But a lot of us, you know, are very dark complected. So she saw and was afraid. You know, she died at 103. And even to the day that she passed, you know, she still used certain language like colored. She never, you know, and she was somewhat stuck in a time where she was like, look, you know, you got to be careful. You need to know how to do this, even to the day, you know, where she passed. Like, hey, and so what was interesting was, I remember I had friends of mine. Their parents used to be concerned, like, that boy's infatuated with guns. What's wrong with him? He's too young to be infatuated with firearms and guns. But my grandmother, around the age of 4 or 5, started introducing me to firearms. Okay. And when my mother was like, what are you doing? And my grandmother, they had a conversation. My grandmother was the matriarch, and she was literally known, and I'm going to say her name, you know, Ruby Eva Griffin. I'm going to go ahead and invoke that name right now and say her name. She raised majority of the family, literally. Saw some very violent things within her past. And she was a very serious woman. And she sat my mother down as the leader of the family and said, let me explain something to you. That boy is chocolate. And these folks, I don't care what you say, where people think we at. I know where we are. And he needs to know how to protect himself. Sure. And she started me on that journey. She grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. She became a seamstress. But while she became a seamstress, she also was one of the first Regalettes. That the Regal used to have this thing, the Regalettes, they were like these dancers or whatever. And actually, she wasn't the first group, she was the second group of Regalettes. She came, there was one particular, the original first group that came in, and she came in right after them. Okay. And believe it or not, my grandmother has a very interesting history. If she was alive, she would say, you can't tell them, don't talk about it too much. I don't want nobody coming for me. But it was like, Mama, all these people are dead. They gone. They made transition. My grandmother worked for Capone at one point. Oh, wow. So Capone owned if I'm not mistaken, forgive me if my history is off, he owned the Cotton Club at one point. And my grandmother worked for Capone in the Cotton Club. And she wasn't like running numbers or doing anything crazy like that. But she worked for Capone for a short amount of time. If you see a picture of my grandmother, she looks like she could pass for Jewish, Italian, anything. If you see her, long black flowing hair, you know, big bright white eyes, and looks like a straight white woman. Even up to the day when we moved, I remember had her in a wheelchair, and folks thought she adopted these black kids. She was like, they're my babies. And my uncle, he was a musician, played with Phil Coran, Baba Phil Coran, and became a martial artist under Gilbert James and Robert Hawkins, who were old school martial artists at that time. And Phil Coran said my uncle was the finest tuba player he's ever heard. Wow. And he's also an artist and a playwright. And he's an incredible artist. And he also was I want to say my uncle was a Pan-Africanist at one point. He's a starch Christian now, like big time Christian. But at one point in time, and I'm not to say because Garvey was a Christian and Pan-African, but my uncle at one point in time was koofied up every day, dashiki, that dude, you know what I mean? Okay, and so Black Panthered out at one point. And so that was their background. And then about the age of 7, and my mother saw me bouncing off of couches and thinking I'm a Ninja Turtle or something. And I was into Samurai Sunday movies and Bruce Lee. And my uncle was a martial arts instructor, or martial artist. He wasn't necessarily teaching. As a matter of fact, he went all the way to his brown belt. As soon as he got to his black belt, there was this myth that had to get your hands registered. People still say that to this day. Man, my hands are registered. That's a myth. I don't want nobody believing that. Maybe in certain cities, but in Chicago and the state of Illinois, that's not true. But he was afraid of receiving his black belt at that time. And martial arts at that time was a very serious thing. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a friend earlier when discussing martial arts. In some circles, there seems to be a watering down of some things. But back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that time, martial arts was serious. Mm-hmm. To find a real dojo was serious because black men and women were under attack.
How did you find that? Because I did read about you, and it was your mother who was the one who was the first to enroll you.
Yes.
After you being trained by your uncle.
Yes. So my uncle started me. She saw that I had a temper. Mm-hmm. She was like,
which is hard to believe.
Yeah. It's funny because somebody complimented me earlier today and was like, man, you're so. Your temper is even, and man, you can handle disagreements and arguments very well, and this, that, and the third. And
you called me ma'am like 25 times already.
So that's my father. That's my father. I was before we started, I was gonna say, please forgive me. That's gonna be a line of sir and ma'am.
I love it.
That was my father and military school, and we can get to that later. But what happened was when my uncle was training me. My uncle was very old school and very rough. And when I say rough, if this was a brick wall, there was a nail. I remember. Like it was yesterday, had this thick nail in the wall, and he would put the back of my head on the nail, and he would make me step out about 1 inch, and he would make me practice blocking. Mm-hmm. I couldn't slip, and I couldn't do any of that. It was like that Karate Kid, high block, middle block. He wanted me to do the old school way, and if he hit me, my head hit the back of that nail, and it was just it felt like abuse, and I was like, I'm 7. I want to go through this, and so I begged my mother, please, and there was a school that I used to pass going to school when I was on the school bus on 76 in Cottage Grove called South Shore Martial Arts. And it was ran by a gentleman by the name of Larry Tankson, or Larry C. Tankson. And my mother put me in this school, this martial arts school on 95th by Kedzie. Right now it's called the School of Self-Defense, I believe. Anyway, at that time they had a big yellow sign that said Kung Fu, Kempo, and Karate. And she gave me private lessons, and I felt out of place. One, because I was the only black kid there. And it just felt weird. And I see nothing that resembled me. And so I was begging her to put me in this other school, and she was like, all right, fine. And she put me in South Shore Martial Arts. And I was like, yes. And man, kids all look like me, my age. Some of the toughest kids I've ever seen, some of the coldest instructors. I was just in this world like, man, these dudes are invincible, they superheroes. And so, but come to find out that toughness of my uncle, that it was the same thing there. Sure. Push-ups on your knuckles. The discipline was crucial. It was a tension stance, relaxing stance, at ease. It was no joke, and it was yes sir, no sir, yes shihan, no shihan, or yes sensei, no sensei. And that discipline piece is what my mother really wanted, because I was getting into fights at school as well. She was like, man, what happened was she saw me protecting a young lady. She tells a story. I was getting into an argument, and I remember I got pushed down. It was an upperclassman. I don't know, whatever grade you're in, around 7, 8. And this kid had to be in 7th, maybe 8th grade. And I caught myself barking at him. And he was just like, and she didn't, she was like, no. I see that he, exactly. And if he has the gall to step up to an older kid like that, and, I need to go ahead and get him trained up. And from there, it just went. And then, to make a long story short, stayed with Larry Tankson for about 30 years. And in the process of studying with him, I started, my father, who was, coming in and out of jail, when he finally got home, he started training me in boxing. He always wanted me to box. My father was a comedian, and he was a Golden Gloves champion before he got started that journey down the road of incarceration and drug addiction. He was a comedian. My grandfather, adopted grandfather, was a comedian, well-known comedian by the name of George Kirby. my father, his name was Bob McDonald, or Robert McDonald. And he traveled with Ali for a shorter period of time, and he would show me all this stuff. And he was like, "Man, I want you to box, I want you to do karate." But I loved karate. And when he came out, he saw me sparring one day, and that led to me learning how to box. And then when my father...
How old were you at that time?
I was about 15 when he started that. And then it wasn't very consistent at first, but later on, it started becoming more consistent, and then he passed by the time I was 20. And so after that, shortly after that, a good friend of mine introduced me to a gentleman who's my boxing coach to this day. His name is Anthony Ivory Muhammad. And he has been my boxing and kickboxing coach. But through that process, I've had other instructors. Dr. Dave Smith was a gentleman who started teaching me early on about Muay Thai and what that was. And then a gentleman by the name of Norby, Native American gentleman, who was studying and teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's when I started that journey. And now I study with Southside Jiu-Jitsu with a gentleman by the name of Solomon Dixon. And so I've been cross-training for quite some time. And then I started firearms instruction, going deeper into that artistry and science, if you will, with a couple of instructors, Donald Bolton, Marquise Miranda, and studying more and going deeper there, learning about that as well. And so that's been my journey, and then I started teaching. I became an assistant instructor under Larry Tankson around 19 years old. And after I left the school, I was like, man, I don't have anything. I remember when I left the school, we had a falling out. And it was because he's like a father figure. I see him to this day, we're cool, but I go visit the school, go spar, go work out. And but like a father-son relationship, you can have your disagreements. Sure. And so we had a falling out, and I remember telling my wife at the time, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have a college degree. I don't really have any other skills. I've been in sales. But I don't want to do sales. There was something about sales that bothered my soul. It's like a lot of salesmen, in my opinion, don't have integrity. It was this weird thing, and I was like, I don't do that. And I was like, and my boxing coach said, "You want to coach boxing?" He's like, I got a program. And I started working with the Becoming a Man program called BAM. And from there, it just took off. And then went through a process, ended up getting a divorce. And I was coaching through BAM, making a little money. And then I met the woman that I'm with now, and we'll be with forever. She said, we made an agreement, there's no such thing as divorce. And so, get over it. Yes. It ain't happening. And so, hey, I'm telling you, ain't no such thing. There's no such thing as divorce. And so, I remember I left BAM, and we had a couple of weeks, and she was just like, "Babe, I know you kind of going through a depression, because BAM wouldn't give me a raise." And I was like, I can't keep working like this. And so I quit. And she was like, "I know you're depressed, but you got to get back on your feet." And the minute she said that, it was literally no hesitation. Okay, got the laptop, started looking up jobs, and I applied to a company called Pro Martial Arts, which would be considered a McDojo. And the McDojo is a martial arts school that doesn't really take martial arts seriously. It's like a daycare that happens to teach martial arts. And so I started teaching there at Pro Martial Arts in Wheaton, Illinois. And actually the day I applied, right then, I got a response that day. And it was a concern because it was in Wheaton. And Wheaton is 99.9999998% white. And it took 2 hours because of traffic to get there. Right. And so I had literally this putt-putt car that my boy gave me because he had moved to London. And it was a car, when I tell you, it was terrible. And I drove out there, and the state troopers would pull me over whenever I would go out there, and I'd be like, "Oh, please!" But I would be in my gi, and I got the black belt, and they'd pull me over, see me, and I'm like, listen, check this out. Just got this job. I'm working it, and they would see me and be like, you a sensei? I was like, yeah. And they'd be like, all right, sensei.
Good luck.
And they just let me go every time. And they'd pull me over. I got pulled over by the same state trooper a couple times. And they were like, sensei, still got it. I was like, I'm trying. I'm working it. Give me some time. Go ahead, sensei. And because I wore the gi, and that during that process is what led me to the thinking of the power of the sensei, and when I started really working with youth even more with the martial arts piece and implementing that. And so, but yeah, that's it. And then from there, from pro martial arts, a friend of mine asked me to apply to be the dean of a high school, and unfortunately I didn't have my bachelor's degree, so they was like, well, we gotta have you inside the school because you have an impact with youth. And so I ended up becoming the life skills / boxing instructor. And that just led to other things. And
so was that your first, is that where you started working with youth outside of just martial arts?
No, so that's inside schools. Okay. I actually started working with kids. I was just teaching for free. Okay. I literally would just be like, so let me say this. I didn't want to teach kids at first. I was like, bump that. I don't want to work with no kids. They get on my nerves. Working with things, I was like, they don't listen. I want to teach adults how to fight. And I remember my ex-wife, her friends were like, we got these little boys. Can you get your husband to teach them? And she came to me and I was like, nope. And then one day, leaving the dojo or the gym, I can remember I had my duffel bag and living in South Shore, and I was walking to the house and I saw this van, and I saw these people in this van. I was like, okay. And then the closer I got, the doors open, so I'm like, all right, here we go. So I was like, I hope this isn't what I think it might be, so let me just be ready. And the side door opened up and it was like, Marquinn. I was like, oh, I was like, what's up? And then they was like, it's such and such. And I was like, oh, hey. And she was like, show us the gym that you work at it. Because at that, we also had a boxing gym in my building that my coach trained. I lived on the 3rd floor. Coach had the boxing gym. And I was like, the gym is in here, right? And I was like, and it was 4 parents with all of their sons. And they forced me, it was the women, the mothers. They was like, you go teach our boys. We need you. And I was like, showed them the gym.
Stick up for real.
I swear to God. And then I opened that door. They saw the gym, which was a dungeon. I'm talking about the gym was a basement. The ring is literally probably the size of this space here. It was just a dungeon. And I was like, this is the space. And I just knew when they saw it, they would be like, yeah, nah, it's too messy. It's just a dungeon. They was like, this is perfect. When you gonna start? Can you start next week? All right, I'll start next week. And from there, I was like, all right, let me start working with those kids. And they were 9 at the time. They're now 22, 23.
Nice.
And so that's when it started. And then I would just teach free. They would pay me like $25 a month. I wasn't trying to charge. And I was just like, I was trying to give karate away. I didn't care. Free programs. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm designing a program for kids to do free karate through our organization, Watchguard Chicago.
Okay. So why do you think you're so passionate about karate?
I'm so passionate about karate because of what it gave me. And I just left for school, Fernwood Elementary, working with a brother that Kasabez and I know by the name of Enoch Muhammad, who has an organization called Hip Hop Detox. And one of the coaches was like, dude, the minute you speak and you bring the martial art component to the program, they just fall in line. And the truth of the matter, in my opinion, young boys, young girls too, I don't want nobody getting it twisted, it's in our girls as well. And through the schools I've worked in, it's our girls, you know, and I'll come back to what I was about to say, but it's our girls, a lot of our girls are kicking off a lot of the fights. And we can talk about that because, you know, a lot of girls, I don't know what has happened cosmically, but the energy has shifted. That's really
how my sister started homeschooling her daughter is because of that. The violence in the school.
And the girls kick off most of the violence. And what you find out, statistically speaking, even in the community with the shootings, you'll find that a young lady was involved 9 times out of 10. Wow. And so, but our young boys are little warriors inside of them. They, it's so they want to be adults at this age. I can't wait to be a grown up, like, because they figure grown ups get to do what they want to do, and they want to prove, they want to demonstrate. They show their manhood in so many different ways. Their little masculine energy. They want to demonstrate it, and when those boxing gloves come out, they automatically go, yo, I can have basketballs, footballs in the gym. Let me pull out some boxing gloves and some mitts, and I'll get half of the gym, probably more than half. I've done it. And they'll come over like, hey, yo, can I throw them gloves? Or they'll just come grab the gloves. And then I have to start implementing rules like, wait, you just can't grab the gloves. You gotta, come introduce yourself. And then, but I've seen where martial arts to me is medicinal, is medicine. And for me. And so it's helped me with my asthma. I'm considered a severe asthmatic. I say was, because I don't, I just language, but Western doctors will say he is a severe asthmatic. And when I went to military school, I remember, I had an asthma attack, and the nurse and the doctors, I heard them talking, and they were like, he has the lung capacity of an Olympic track runner, but he has the worst asthma we've ever seen. We do not understand it. They were like, we cannot understand it. He has the worst asthma we've ever seen, but this kid has the lung capacity of a track runner. And they was amazed because how fast I can run. I ran fast. If I told you what I ran in the 40, you'd be like, dude, what did you do with your speed? And so
you should race Anthony. He's really fast too.
Hey, let's get it. But I thought I'd stretch it up, get some work in. Now this summer I gotta go to see what I run in the 40 this summer. The goal is for me to run the 40 in 4.5, but this summer. But when I was younger, I ran the 40 in 4 flat.
Nice.
And so, but I didn't do anything with that speed. But I take that back. I did karate with it. Nice. But I didn't. I thought about running track, and when I went to Leo High School, I did run cross country. I ran track for a short amount of time, but scheduling didn't happen, and I got kicked out of Leo for fighting. And then my mother was like, "If you get kicked out of school, I'm putting you in Calumet, which is right around the corner." I was like, "You ain't gonna send me to public school. You wouldn't dare send me to that school. That's the worst school in the city." She did. And the experience there was like, whoa. Wake up call. And then I left Calumet in my junior year so I could go to military school. And that's, that made that my schooling history. That's as far as I went.
I heard you were also interested in the Chicago Police Department. What?
I was. So my family are police officers. So my family is a mixture of things. Chicago police officers, gangbangers, some business owners. You have a few doctors and things there. But for the most part, when you come to family gatherings, you had the street side, and then you had the elders. The street side always respected the elders. In my family, you saw a dynamic there that was incredible. Even when their friends came, it was like, yo, Miss Griffin don't play. That was my grandmother, and the elders, and they didn't play because they didn't play. So they, the young heads respected the old heads, and then you had the police side. And on barbecues, we lived in South Shore, 6836 South Crandon. Missed that building. The building, my aunt. British, she owned the building, and the second floor where she lived on, and the first floor would be full of family and friends. The backyard full, the whole courtyard. Everything was packed, and you would have a dozen squad cars outside, and they in there with these street dudes, cause my uncles and stuff. And so the family at one point was very connected and very together. I even thought that they had some type of political ties, because I remember my grandmother did some work with Daley at one point. Daley, when he was a Richard M. I think he was a lawyer at one point. My uncle was into it with the Blackstones at the time, and something happened. I think he may have witnessed something or something, and it was threats on him. And Daley at that time helped my uncle helped them through that process, even though daily, never mind. But that's another conversation. But my grandmother knew Harold Washington and all this other stuff. And so I thought we were rich. I didn't know. I was a kid. I didn't know what poverty was. I didn't know we was, considered middle class or towards the bottom of middle class, right? Because they came from the projects. They came from the Robert Taylors and the Ickeys and all that. Some come from Cabrini. And so, that whole group, aunts, uncles, all of them came from that. And so when my Aunt British, came into some money and started businesses, and my grandmother would help manage, that's what helped get the real estate and things that we unfortunately don't have now. But and family started separating. When the elders died, family started doing this. And so I thought about becoming a cop because of that. I'm seeing police, and I'm not at a young age. I'm not experiencing. I was kind of shielded a little bit. I saw violence. But my mother, the way they would narrate and edit violence, for my perception of it, would be a certain way. Like, we just gonna narrate that, and what you seeing right now is this, which I get what they were doing, but in some ways I wish I would just got it raw at the time. But at that age, they didn't want me to have that. They was focused on we had to get him in a different space, and I wanted to be police until I got my first interaction, with police. Okay. And that sort of shifted me a bit because we moved from South Shore to Chatham, and my friends and I would play a game called Chase. We would take 2 blocks and 3 alleys, and we do a 5-on-5 game of hide and seek pretty much. And I remember running through the alley, come through, and I remember coming out the alley, and these 2 police officers was at this car, and one of the officers, she had a nickname back then. Her name was Blondie. Anybody that was around during that time know these names. Blondies, the Batmans, all of them. They had particular reputations. And she was, come here. And I came over, thinking, somebody, the police, they're not going to bother me. They're going to harm me. And, they was like, you stole this car. I was like, no, I didn't. What you running for? I was like, I'm playing hide and seek. And they was like, no, you didn't use running. I was like, why would I run? And I told her, I was like, why would I run to the police? I was like, why would I run this way? I was like, I'm not running. I live right here on 81st and Morgan. We're at the corner between 81st and 82nd and Morgan. In between Morgan and Sangamon. If it wasn't for the community and my friends coming, my friends came, they ignored. They put me in these cuffs. They cuffed me up. They was rough with me. I'm just like, what is going on? And then I remember my cousin brought my mom, and they turned the corner like they was the police. Hit the brakes, screeched, mother got out, cussed them out, and the elders in the block came out. And was like, that boy live right here. I know that young man, he run in my yard all the time. You let him go. And they was like, he stole this from Wisconsin. They was like, he couldn't have. He was just playing hide and seek. He lives right there. And because of the pressure of the community coming out, they uncuffed me. And then my mother cussed them out, and then took me back home. But then after that, every other interaction was negative. It was just terrible. But the good versions I would see was my uncles. And so, in the worldview system of Ifa, I'm a child of Ogun. And so, for those who don't know, Ogun is an Orisha, and Orisha, I guess, would be considered like an angel, if you will, one of God's angels, if you will, or my guardian in some ways. Some say deity. Ogun is the god, for lack of better words, of technology, metal, police, military, warfare. And so all of that is literally me. And as a matter of fact, Marquinn, when we had the name broken down, means God of War / counselor. So my father intentionally named me that. And the name actually came from, not my father was given the name from a woman by the name of Christine Houston. Christine Houston wrote the TV show 227. And that's how I got my name. And so it matches me. So when people are like, why you want to be police? It was just, I guess it was just already in me. It was already called to me. And I'm already somewhat, took on this role as a protector. And so when it was brought to me, the opportunity of possibly becoming a police officer, I seriously considered it. And I was like, man, and I talked to the elders. I sat down with certain elders in the community, some that were old Black Panthers. We have some Panthers whose assignment, if you will, was to become police officers, who would come in, and the elders was like, we need more of them, who would see us in trouble. They would get us about the paddy wagons, or they would come and get us and sneak us around the corner, to get us away from what was about to happen, because you needed to strategically think like that, because at that time, hey man, they gang banging. The police wasn't our friend. And so, what happened was, talking to the elders, they were like, yes, do it. Become a police officer. Some elders was like, you could do much more. My wife was like, I don't know. It could, but I'm afraid. And we had a private conversation and was like, listen, we have these babies. We have these babies. And we have a family. And I don't want something happening to you. And, I'm afraid of this. And we had a conversation. And, we decided, you could probably do more for the community, not being a police officer. And that's what led to Watchguard. So...
What is Watchguard?
Watchguard is a community-based organization that specializes in public safety. And some would say community policing. We don't necessarily use the term policing, but we do neighborhood watch, and we do community patrol. And during the what I call uprisings, some would say riots, of May, with the George Floyd situation, May 31st of 2019. Actually, we started in 2017, but it was inconsistent. There was if you recall back then, in the news, it said a lot of Black women were coming up missing. They were finding them in abandoned buildings and alleys and dumpsters, or they were just missing. And it was a huge scare. And what happened was, myself and a few friends decided, okay, every weekend we're gonna go in Bronzeville and walk up and down Bronzeville for 4 or 5 hours and just keep an eye out for sisters and make sure everything is cool. But our schedules was kind of conflicting at one point. But in 2019, when we got word that, man, they tearing up 47th Street. So, we get this early afternoon, go there, cool some tensions between police and the youth and, the community. And that night we were like, let's go out and patrol and just drive around, make sure everything is cool. And then that night we decided to do it. We want to make sure no businesses were destroyed, no abuse of police abusing their powers and getting emotionally compromised, and hey, I'm going to just go grab some kids or somebody and whoop on them. We didn't want nobody starting fights just to start them. And you see people that will exploit the cause and use this to break into people's homes that have nothing to do with what's really, of liberation or true understanding of the oppression or police brutality and nothing like that. They're just going to use this and exploit the moment, the chaos, to do whatever. So we were like, we need to make sure that we're out to make sure that we have some type of balance in the community. And that night we decided, every night from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. we're going to go out and patrol. And so we've been doing that ever since 2019. And
you still do it to this day?
We still do it we pulled back. We still do it to this day, but lightly, because we are now in the process of re-strategizing. We just partnered with a few organizations. We just got some capacity building funding, and
prior to the funding, you were doing this just voluntarily.
We was doing it on our own. Now, I have to give a shout out to Chicago Beyond, which is an organization that did give us some money through our fiscal agent, and which allowed us to get some of the tools that we needed. We needed bulletproof vests. Basics. We needed first aid kits and trauma kits. We needed vehicles, because people get your license plate and all type of crazy madness could happen. And we needed uniformity. We had these vests and shirts and stuff like that. So we was able to use some of that money and pay for gas. We was able to give some stipends and use it. But before that, it was all us. And after that, we use that. It's all been us. And so we just recently received a grant that is allowing us strictly for capacity. And what we're doing is re-strategizing, because we went from becoming a patrol group to a mentoring institution as well, where every summer we take 50 young men, 16 to 24, from the ages of 16 to 24, and we mentor them in culture, health and wellness, and economics, and history and culture, health and wellness, economics. And now we want to take that. It's a 6-week program. Now what we want to do is make that a year-long program.
Wonderful. Now, what organization is this part of?
This is WatchGuard.
Yes,
This is all WatchGuard. It's all WatchGuard, yes. And WatchGuard offers 4 times a year free self-protection workshops where we teach women how to protect themselves physically through physical self-defense as well as home security. We also help train neighborhoods on blocks, on block clubs, how to build block clubs and how your block club can operate. Not should operate, but could operate, because many block clubs have different methods of operating. And like, for example, I'm the vice president of my block club now, and our block club, through some of the strategies that we've employed, we have been able to dramatically reduce the chaos that was happening on our block. And recently we just had a burglary about 3 weeks ago. The president of our block club, who was out of town, her home got burglarized. She saw it on her camera. She called me. We alerted the police. These 2 young men, they were about 15 years of age, took her firearms and several other items. But within an hour, because of the strategy and the work through the block club, we was able to get all that back, with the exception of a couple of items. But we were able to get the firearms back, and able to find the young men. The police did arrest the young men, and now through WatchGuard, the goal is to see what the young men need, what resources they need, because you don't just throw them away.
Sure.
You know what I mean? The problem is we lock them up, and that's the cure, and that's not the cure. They don't get any resources. They're not getting any type of help whatsoever. There's a reason why they're babies.
Sure.
Right. And what happens is we toss things away, and that's not it. That's not village. So the goal is to bring a village model, and to show that you can address violence through a village model and in a holistic fashion. It doesn't have to be direct action. Doesn't mean a pistol or a fist. A lot of people are like, man, we're gonna use direct action, and they think violence in regards to, hey, man, we're gonna fight and we're gonna do it. No, direct action can be through diet. You can address violence through. To address violence is multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-dimensional.
Well, I wanted to know about WatchGuard. Like, what's the scope in terms of this community patrol that you guys do or have been doing? Like, what areas is that in, and like, what have you seen as some of the impact?
So, we're in a few areas. We started in Bronzeville, and then we would patrol Bronzeville and South Shore periodically, and then we moved out. It was Bronzeville, South Shore, Woodlawn. And then we moved out west and did a couple of partnerships and things out west.
Okay.
And we're still out west. And so West Garfield Park, to be more specific. And so, and now the goal is to, and let me say this. Bronzeville, when we patrolled Bronzeville, we also ended up patrolling Kenwood and Hyde Park. And I know some people will be like, why Hyde Park? Hyde Park is, they got money and they good. Yeah, 53rd, all that. People just don't realize Hyde Park got violence that is very much so covered up by, the University of Chicago does a very good job of masking the chaos that is within Hyde Park.
I just heard about it. I just heard someone got shot outside the dormitory.
Yes, yeah. So there's been several shootings, several robberies, and so and this isn't a diss to the University of Chicago. As a matter of fact, I'm impressed on how skilled you all are with covering up such things. That's impressive, but at the same time, it's very problematic because with that, I don't know what strategies are you all doing to alleviate that.
Right.
And how are you implementing community in solving those issues? But nevertheless, so Bronzeville Patrol will cover Kenwood and Hyde Park. And then we would also periodically go to South Shore. One, I was born in South Shore, raised part of my life in South Shore, and also some of the other members are in South Shore, and so from some of the WatchGuard members live in South Shore, and with the police scanners at that time, the police scanners have been since then encrypted. Under Lori Lightfoot's administration, she had them encrypted where the public can't listen to the scanners. If you do, they're on a 30-minute delay through radio apps and whatnot. But when we were able to use the scanners, we were able to report and arrive to certain situations sometimes faster than the police. Majority of the times faster than the police, actually.
Wow.
And if it was something that we could handle, we could get ahead of it, and then the police would show up. And what happens is now their tensions can decrease. They don't have to come so amped up. They're like, oh, it's calm here. And who are these guys in these vests? Oh, hi, we're such and such. And then we can help with the reporting.
That's very interesting how you were describing this watchdog group. When you made a conscious decision to not get into the police force for your own protection, for your own longevity, for your own survival, if you will, because you did want to ensure that you could pass your legacy on to your children, your family, and the like. But yet, now you're trying to beat the police to the scene. You're trying to protect, serve. All of these concepts that you're talking about with the village and protecting, how does that balance itself?
So, I guess I get to, in some ways, live out
the idea.
my purpose. I would say my purpose or my path, through WatchGuard. Also, I'm not as limited as I would be if I was an officer. If you know police officers, some of them will tell you we can't, we got to be cool because the department may not approve of this, or they can't move in a particular fashion. However, we're not limited to that base.
Right.
And so also because we're coming from a community perspective and not a corporate, what I consider a corporate institution, and we can come in a different angle than them, and we can serve as a bridge.
And probably the people who you'll be serving or assisting are not going to look at you the same way
They
as
don't.
if you had that cop uniform on.
And actually, so what's funny is when we first started pulling up, folks thought we were police, especially when we got the interceptors, because we drive around in interceptors right now.
Oh, wow.
And so folks would be like, whoa, but when they see the vest, they're like, y'all police? I'm like, no, we're part of WatchGuard, and we would just explain to them we're community patrol. Before we even named ourselves WatchGuard, though, let me go back. Before we named ourselves WatchGuard, we was the Bronzeville Community Patrol, and we would just tell people we're the Bronzeville Community Patrol. And I remember some folks was like, we didn't know Bronzeville had a community patrol. And then we were like, well, yeah, they do. We would talk about it. And then when we became WatchGuard, we'd say, no, we're part of WatchGuard. We just, we heard over the radio that there was a situation, there was an argument and a fight. We wanted to make sure everything was cool and see if you need any assistance with anything. Also, when the police arrive, if you're uncomfortable talking to the police and filing a report, we can go ahead and be a voice for you and speak to them, And, most of the officers were really cool. They did not, there was one particular group of officers that would see us every night. And when we pull up, they'd be like, oh, it's y'all again. Hey, what's up? They was just like, cool. And they was like, or we would be at a certain thing, calm it down. They would pull up, wouldn't get out the car, and they'll do this. And we'd be like, and they'd be like, see ya. And they gone. Because they could get to the next space. Or we would tell them, everything's cool. They just had a bit of a disagreement. We got them to talk. We got them to resolve it. And I'll speak about the training on how we were able to do that. And then they would be like, okay, we can go to the next call.
Right.
Because some people are like, man, I'm having emergencies, and the police is taking an hour, and then you've heard through the news they don't have enough officers, we can't get enough people to apply, and all this, that, and the third. So, the unfortunate thing is that there was no real connection, where the city and the police department and organizations like WatchGuard could really get on one page to create a strategy that was set in the books. So we have to do it organically, and we have to do it, just go out there and do it our way. Look, we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it, and y'all just going to have to deal with it. Right. And, we've had plenty of the news come at us. Soledad O'Brien, she came in to see what we were doing. And people were looking like, wait, are they vigilantes? Like, what's going on? And then when they would see the work, they was like, nah, like, can we do a ride along? Absolutely. And they were like, how you all doing this? And which goes to the training that I was talking about. Part of my background that I didn't get to, but I started going and doing security when I was young. Started at 18 years of age working for Andy Frame. If you go to the auto show within this week, you'll see some of them at the auto show with the red jackets looking like ushers. That's called AF Services now. And I was working for that company, and then worked at my mother's church doing security and, a few other places. And then that led me onto a journey security-wise, because I didn't really want to do security at first. I thought, I was like, I'm going to be stuck in this phase. But it led to some cool things, and then I became a bodyguard, or doing executive protection. Let me choose my words. Some people get sensitive about that, but doing EP work, and where I have guarded several folks. Amara Inya, who ran for mayor, I ran her security. I was the director of her security detail, and a few others. Worked with Tamika Mallory and whatnot, and even I'm out of the job. We're not really, in the security world, you should talk about people that you work and whatever. But I'm out the job, so I've worked some of these folks, and so I've no longer worked that. But I took the skills that I acquired there. Sounded like Liam Neeson from Taken.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I took the skills from there, and I applied it to Watchguard, and so we have a hyper focus on mental health first aid, being informed, properly informed in regards to trauma and how to help deal with community and a community that is traumatized, and help to work with them. We also do with our partners who train us, UMedics or UGMA medics, and gunshot wound and knife wound and first aid training, trauma.
That's UMedics is with Martine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Shout out to Martine and UMedics.
We gotta get Martine on this one.
And then they train us in that. And then I will follow up with the verbal and physical de-escalation. Verbal de-escalation, knowing how to resolve conflict. We see two fights, how do you resolve conflict? And we will couple that with the training that we receive on the mental health first aid piece, knowing how to recognize things and how to identify threats and certain behaviors, so we can come in with a particular approach. And then if it was physical, where say a gentleman is physically beating a woman, how to come in skillfully without coming with blunt force trauma like punches or knees and all that type of stuff. How do we skillfully, through jiu-jitsu, through grappling practices and techniques, certain holds, and come in to stop him, and to stay composed while doing so. Understanding it's not personal, that he's not after us. He may be sick. He may be going through something. This is what this is. You can't come in, man, he's stopping you, and come. No, you have to come in, brother. I understand. It's all good, man. No, after that, he gonna call you 1,000 B words. We need to be focused to let that roll.
Now, do you think that's the martial arts gave you that?
It is very much so that.
That discipline to be able to deal with the temper of another.
Absolutely.
And that's interesting that you said that you have a temper, so possibly that you can even
recognize that.
Yes.
And I can address it. And seriously, folks will be looking at us like, y'all talking to him like he a baby. He cussing y'all out, and you like, it's okay, brother. It's all right. We got you. No, F that, F you. Some people will be like, no, F you. You've seen situations, and this is not me coming at the police, but you have seen situations where cops are getting cussed out by community, and they respond back with it. They're your mama. Man, what? Now what? Man, I'll F you too. You know what? Can you come over here and say that to me? It's because you got that gun in that badge. How about I take it off, and then we go ahead in the yard and we get a fair one. Let's do it. And that's not the attitude. The attitude should be like, sir, I understand. I would also, let me say this. My mom has a huge, long history of customer service. And my mother instilled that in me for real. She had me working McDonald's with her a few times and working in the play place and all that. And my mother was about the customer's always right. This is how you address the customer. All that training is transferable because what you're doing is
no matter what, and we can take this even back to the movement with King when they were doing the trainings when they were going to cross Selma. They were like, I don't care how many names they call you, how they spit on you, how many rocks they hit you with. I want you to stay composed and don't hit, swing, don't ball up a fist, don't do nothing. Now, some people look at that as a form of weakness, and then you have others that can see that as a particular strength in that. And when you have a man that's trying to go crazy and you have to skillfully hold him, and a couple of you are working, I have his legs, okay, I have his arms, I got control, clear. All right, making sure that he can breathe properly, making sure he's good. He's sweet, man, let me go, fuck y'all, kill y'all out. And you said it like, brother, we got you. Just calm down, brother, it's okay. We got you, sir, it's all right. Just calm down. I understand, but I can't let you go right now, brother, because I want to get hurt, man, you know. Well, it's all good. And that takes a certain level of skill and discipline. So, yeah. I'm sorry.
Could you talk to... maybe like about the size of the Watchguard group?
Yes, sir. So right now we are about 30 deep. So we're not that very big. And we cut it there intentionally because of the lack of capacity.
Gotcha.
What you find out is that money is real. It is. A lot of our members, they have families.
Right.
These are men who have, children. They have families. They are, they have jobs and careers. Some of them would very much so take a step away if they could say, hey, we can work. I'd rather do this. I've had members say, I'd much rather do this.
Right.
But we can't pay them a salary.
Right.
Because at first we like, man, we don't need nobody money. We take the donation, but we don't need no. And you find out, we need some money. So
it's real.
So now that's why we're re-strategizing. We have this little bit of funds for capacity. And I want to definitely shout out. I know some people may look kind of crazy, but I'm going to shout them out because no one else would give us the funds. Chicago Cred. Because they did. They gave us a small little bag. Hey, here's for capacity building. And they didn't give us any limitations. They didn't say you had to change anything. You have to do this. You have to take that out. It was, hey, use this to build your org.
Nice.
We see what you're doing. We see that you're struggling here. Use this. You don't even have to stay with us. You don't got to partner with us after this. You don't have to do, but use this to build.
Nice.
And so there was no stipulations to come with that. And I appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that.
Well, understanding that probably, you might want to keep some of this under wraps, but is there anything you could say about the direction you guys are going now in terms of trying to, it sounds like you're saying broaden your impact and focus more on training other people to do what you guys have been doing?
So that is the goal, to implement trainings. We started that process already, but we're fortifying it. We're making it more solid. We want to give better quality. The goal, when you become a black belt, matter of fact, forget that. When you start as a white belt, the next rank, which may be yellow, depending on your system, is about becoming a better version of yourself than when you was white, and so on and so forth until you get the black belt. You get the black belt, it's the same thing. The purpose of the belt ranking system is not just to show you like, oh man, I'm moving up closer to black belt, but it's also to show that it is a continuous progression to better oneself and to become better, to have that quality, and so that's the goal. I can't go too deep. System? Yeah, that's what the ranking system is. But I won't go too deep for this reason.
Right.
We now have what we did not have before. We have a strategic director. Her name is Tony Anderson with Mindful Rant. Tony is also known in the community. She has a Share Space Lab. She's an incredible woman. The woman is brilliant because she's straight up organizing us. As Tony, if she was here, would tell me, shut up. Don't say too much because we're putting it all together, and I respect
that's why
that.
I put the question.
No, I respect it.
Yeah.
But I will do as my boss. Even though I may be the president, I was like, you the boss. So I would say what my boss would tell me is not to say too much right now because we really are building on something that's really beautiful, and the goal. I'll say this. Hopefully, we can show folks that holistic approaches are real, are possible, are needed
everybody wants to go with this lock them up, throw away the key approach. And no one wants to be a doctor. No one wants to be a scientist to get to the root cause. Find out what's causing the cancer and address that. No one wants to really do that. Everybody's just like, oh, no. You know what? They just bad. Or if you was a farmer, you're going to be like, how are my crops? What's going on? And then you're going to find out like, oh, this chemical been in the soil. We need to examine, or oh, you know what? We didn't know that the soil this was happening. We didn't know that these animals were coming in and tearing up our crops. We didn't know, you look to figure out how can I make this crop better? How can I make it better and heal this?
And what do you say is the root of that? If you had to identify
the root of
whatever the cancers that you're seeing in today's society, because you talked about earlier, before our families were very closely knit.
Yes,
we had a village, we had a community, we had people looking out for one another. The neighbors would come out on the street and defend these young people. Now those same people that would come out and say, lock them up, send them and throw them away the key. So where do you think that shift happened and why?
I think that shift, I don't even think there was a shift. I think it's always been, well, let me say this. I think that shift really happened when we got kidnapped off of our shores. So when our ancestors got, kidnapped, and violated, we're going to call it what it is, a straight kidnapping and a robbery off of our shores. And everything that has happened to us has been systematic. This is systemic issues that have been intentionally implemented to disrupt and destroy and to manipulate and corrupt community. And it is financial. It is a financial cesspool, if you will. There's money in violence. There is money in violence. I don't care what anyone says. As a matter of fact, some folks are going to be upset with me for saying this, and it is what it is, but I don't think that even those who say that they want to prevent violence wants violence to end. Because if you do, your organization of how many other people are going to be, where we going to work if it goes? Where we going to get our check? Where we going to get our money?
Right.
And so
the police,
that's anything. That's everything. That's even some of the violence prevention groups. Yeah. We said with Watchguard originally, the plan for Watchguard was to dissolve like stitches. It was once we get to a certain point, it was to dissolve out. But when we saw that, okay, there's a serious need. Okay, let's build an institution that can be focused on not being a Band-Aid, but possibly creating culture. And now changing the shifting culture can change the dynamic that's happening within our village and our communities. Becoming a village-based program. Hey, we are village, and really use a community to solve our ills and our issues. And so, but the issue is that you have individuals out here that are money hungry. It is chase the bag, chase the bag, chase the bag, chase the bag. Understand this. I'm not saying, because there are people who say, well, wait, you just said money is important. Yes.
But that can't be
that's
the
not
whole purpose.
The end goal. The work started first. We use money as a tool.
Right.
Money is a tool, but it is not the end goal. Like, listen, I get it, but we have been so corrupted. Our brains are the most powerful computers on this planet, and there have been some very smart men and women that have come in rooms and found a way to strategically and tactically find ways of programming us to be where we are. Well, matter of fact, when I was at the school I was just at, we was just talking about how, because violence is my study, we were just discussing how I was complimented. He was like, man, you're able to get the students in line and do this, that, the third, and blah, 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 blah. And they said, they'll let the kids go out in the playground and just run all over the place and be chaotic. And I said something that started a conversation. I said, even in just letting them be chaotic, there's a way to control the chaos. Where it may look chaotic, but there's a purpose. You can still put purpose behind that. You can still use that energy, right? That's what those people have done to us. Think about it. For years, crime would not go past
They cloned Tyrone.
Man, listen. For years, crime wouldn't go. The reason why they freaking out about downtown and up north is because they're trying to figure out how their systems failed. Because for years, they had crime isolated in a particular geographical area. They don't come past here. We don't let them come past there. They created invisible borders.
Right.
That we would be like, you know what, don't cross that. Right. I remember my grandmother, when I first told her I was going into Bridgeport, she was like, you going into Bridgeport? For what? You don't go into Bridgeport.
Right.
And so, my thing is that you have individuals that, just look at the Kerner report. It's amazing to me, I forget which president it was.
The what report?
Was it the Kerner report? I think
Kerner.
The Kerner report. I think it was Johnson. It might have been. I may be wrong. Somebody can correct me, but I forget what president it was. But back in the '60s, one of the presidents that we had, either '50s or '60s, sent out a team to study what was going on inside the United States in regards to the violence and the chaos and the racism and so on and so forth. And it came back that white supremacy and racism was the cause of a lot of the madness that was happening. And they had a whole list that pointed to the government and other institutions that was the cause of what was going on in the chaos that was happening within communities of color and so on and so forth. And they didn't do nothing with that report. It was like, we the problem. Just keep that over there.
All right, we know.
Yeah, just put that over there. But because think about it, no one to this day, we talk about reparations, to this day, there's never been charges brought up. It has been proven. It has been evidence that has been proven to show that the U.S. government did intentionally drop cocaine and heroin and other forms of narcotics in the black community targeted.
Absolutely.
Alcohol and other forms of narcotics and opioids and addictive substances targeted in our communities.
Well, this is the same country that will carpet bomb cities in wars and drop atomic bombs.
Drop bombs with the MOVE. Think about the MOVE movement.
Yeah. Well, that happened in U.S. soil.
Exactly.
Philly, yeah.
So we talk about what's the problem.
They'll bomb a whole city in Germany or Japan or whatever. So
yes.
To get
you'll drop an atomic bomb that, hey, we gonna make them, hey, you know what, they kicking our butts. Just kill everybody.
Right.
That's the answer. Just kill everyone. So we know what the issue is. The problem is this is my only cry for us as community. We have to, and I know this is a cry that's always been, but we need to really start coming together, strategizing, and implementing real strategy. Not gonna talk about what that looks like here right now, because that is a closed door conversation with real conversation. However, they have found ways of programming us or deprogramming us to where we now don't even see the true war and the true violence that is being implemented on us.
Absolutely. And that's the wake-up call that all of humanity, especially here in the West, needs to understand. Like, the troubles, the challenges that we see in our communities are very deliberate.
Absolutely.
It's very programmed. It's very systematic. It's not a surprise to anyone. The statistics, all of these things, that's why they build prisons based upon the educational scores of third graders.
Yep.
All of it's like studied very well to see what's the next move. We don't think that far. We think from today until tomorrow, where you have people behind closed doors who are planning for our future for generations to come.
Yes.
So if we don't make the changes that we need within ourselves, within our families, within our communities, we just become a statistic.
That's right.
We just become fodder for the system.
And we're just robots.
Exactly.
That's all that you
let me ask you this though, because I know you don't want to get into like strategy, but could you talk to our listeners a little bit about the importance of the Black Club associations that you're forming and that you're a part of? You know,
absolutely, that definitely. So let me say this. Well, one, let me just say some of the things I've seen.
And,
generally,
in with regards to solving the specific problems that we just were talking about.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I will say this: if you have a block full of apartment buildings, it can be a little bit more difficult to create a block club than if you have a block of homes. If your block is predominantly homes, you can create a block club fairly easy with a little bit of work. But if it's apartment buildings, you're gonna have to really get out there and hustle. And let me just say, it was real simple how we built our block club. I met my neighbor, who's the president of our block club. Shout out to Glennis Green, with Black Researchers Collective, and we was like, hey, we need a block club. And then we talked to another friend of ours, Harvey, and what we decided to do was put a note on everyone's door. We went door to door, and we were like, hi, I'm such and such I'm your neighbor from such and such, and we want to all discuss as a block creating a block club. And so we're going to be on Zoom this week on this day. Here's the Zoom link at this time. If you're interested in building a block club, please join in. And we started out with probably about 5 people on the block. Okay. And then from there, it was like, oh, for real? And then word starts spreading. And then when we created our first block party, that was a strategy. So folks was like, well, we gonna kick it and have fun. And my thing was with the block club, no, that's strategy. The block party is going to cause people to come out. Like, wait a minute, y'all shutting down the block? What's going on? And then wait, y'all got balloon houses and free food and all this other stuff? What's happening? And y'all painting faces? And then it causes people to come out because you got kids on this block too. And folks is like, well, go on out there and have fun. Next thing you know, you're meeting your neighbors. Right. And then it's like, okay, we have a block club meeting coming up later this week. Right. And so now your new neighbors are like, oh, I'm gonna be on it. And then we built it out from there. And what happened was we would get input from the neighbors, asking them, what do you want to see for the block? What is it that you want to see? Well, I want to see this. We even had a couple of shootings. We need to end. And then what we also did was introductions of finding out who was on our block. And then you come to find out we had some incredible folks on our block, some powerful people on our block. And so even folks that worked in city government and everything. And we had our beat facilitator on our block. We're like, oh, we have our beat facilitator. We have folks that are part of the the Washington Park Safety Advisory Council, Washington Park Advisory Council. And so, after using all that, then we had connections to the alderman's office. We had folks on our block that were connected to the police department. And other things. And we were just like, oh, wait a minute. And then we had one common thing. Everybody may not agree with anything, but one we did agree with was the shootings on our block had to stop. Right. And unfortunately, we had some of that happening from some young guys. And we did several approached the young guys. Who has a good relationship with these guys? I know them. All right, we'll talk to them. Their attitude was like, man, step off. We've been over here longer than some of y'all. We ain't trying to hear that. And then we had to get strategic. And we found out who some of these guys who their family was and how they may have been connected to certain things. And once we found out that, it was like, oh, we're going to lean on it that way. And then we let their family go and be like, y'all need to move around because y'all ain't finna mess up my stuff. And so, but what happened was when you did have some guys that come over there, we had one incident where we had 6 young men walking the block for 4 hours straight, no police presence, guns and open carry. They just out walking with pistols in their hands. We have it on the ring cams. We got the video footage. We have it all archived. You can see them walking. And I went out in my car because it's it's an Interceptor. It looks like a police car. They don't know I'm not the police. And even though folks was like, you put yourself at risk, well, okay, so be it, whatever. Got in the car, and when they start seeing me driving around, now they started going in different directions. So I would go in the directions that they would go in, and it would cause them to get isolated in one spot. But how I knew where they were going, we have a group chat, and so we have the group chat going, and get on the call. And the neighbors, what they don't know is the neighbors are watching them through cameras and windows, lights out. They can't see you with the lights out. Get the blinds halfway open, and you're just watching from a little bit of a distance. And the neighbors are like, they're going eastbound on such and such. Okay, I don't have a visual on them right now. Anybody else got eyes on them? Yeah, I seen them. They coming through the alley right now. And so the neighbors now are your old eyes. So now they're like, Q, they're going this way. Boom. All right, let me hit them this way. And then we was able to get them to be isolated in one spot. Because then what we did was we connected with another block club. Mm-hmm. We helped another block club that we also helped, with building and giving them strategies on building theirs. And so now you have a link, right? And so through that, what I humbly call blockchain, right? I took a play off of words. Through blockchain, the neighbors are all like, oh, wait, they're right. And then at the police, we get to report it to the police. And then I went on Facebook because I went Facebook Live. The police now, it's been 4 hours, I'm out here patrolling, trying to, and the alderman, shout out, and I know some people may have an issue, but I have to give a shout out to this Alderman Pat Dow, even though some people may have an issue with it. She saw that live and responded, because people follow me all on Facebook and stuff, and said, I'm on it right now. Our alderman didn't do it. She got on the commander's behind and was like, what's going on? And within a matter of minutes, squad car come flying. The issue is that squad didn't stop though. He came flying through the block. We finally was able to get those guys off our block. They split up and went in different directions. But nevertheless, what they found was, man, how did everybody know what's this? Then we had some other instances, and the neighbors are like, hey, calling the police. We have a strategy, we have a tactic. Everybody bombard 911 right now. And they'll dial 911, everybody call, and they just getting bombarded with it. And then we would have meetings with the commanders. We would hit our alderman's office and bombard our alderman with emails and request through our block club president. We request a Zoom call. They get us on the chief of staff of the alderman would get us on the schedule. We'll have at that time it was Sophia King. We had several meetings with Sophia King, her chief of staff, Prentice, and the police commander. And then we would have all the community and we would voice. And it's like, please understand, the reason why you have the ability and the power that you think you have is because we do nothing. But when we come together as a fist, we are a problem. This is why you got to be careful with precinct captains. If you remember back in the day, you had precinct captains and others. That's political power. And if you can organize a block or two, you are a threat, because that means you can organize a neighborhood. You organize a neighborhood, you can organize a city. That right there is a problem. So of course you're going to get, how can I help you?
Right.
But if it's just one person calling, it's going to be like, well, the aldermen just seem to be too busy. But when you have 20 and 30 people calling, and they're coming at the police, and we have documentation, and you skillfully speak to them. Because we had a situation happen where the commander at that time, who's no longer there, and, our block club may have some reasons, might be a reason for that, but because he wanted to have an attitude with us because of that day with those 6 young men. Whoever's driving this vehicle, they need to be careful. You don't supposed to be doing that or whatever. Nobody said it was me. We was okay. Yeah, okay. And he said some other stuff where some of the men were like, hey, listen, what am I supposed to tell my wife? She coming home from work. Just tell her don't come home. This was his answer. Wow. Excuse us? Wow. And so I went off. And I was like, Alderman, I said, this is me speaking to you. We've done everything. This is my words to her. I said, you hear the attitude we get? I said, we have done everything that you've asked us to do. We've made relationships with our block club. We've created a block club. We've made relationships with the CAPS office. We've made relationships with our police commander, with our alderman's office. We submit emails. We have documentation. We record. We archive. We do everything. Dial 911. Everything. We don't even take matters into our own hands, even though we could. We follow the law to the letter, and we followed your rules and suggestions to the letter, and this is the attitude that we get. Listen to it. You're hearing it for yourself. This is how community is treated? Well, we have an answer for that, and before I can get it out, I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald. And that's the second time I've had to do that to that particular commander. And so, because he also lied to the community in another meeting, was like, well, squad cars are right here. I was like, no, they're not. Excuse me, I think I would know. I was like, I'm on patrol myself through my organization. I'm sitting where your squad car should be. You just told
a Zoom call full of 20, 30 people that your squad cars in. And what told him the truth was neighbors was like, he right. I see him sitting out there right now. And he's like, wait a minute. There's something that I follow certain individuals online because I study martial arts. And there's certain martial artists. And one gentleman in particular used certain language. And I couldn't agree more. He said, you have to take extreme ownership. And I agree completely. First of all, I personally don't believe that you can own land in the sense of this is I spent money on this. Earth itself is a living, breathing parent to us all. I believe George Carlin, where Earth one day gonna get tired and shake us off like fleas. You're gonna sit there and take over like this is my stuff. This is mine. Well, if that's the case, then I own this land. If we can own land, I own this land. If I live here and pay taxes, I own this. This is mine. This is my attitude. You don't get to boss me and tell me what I can do, what I can protect, who I can protect, who I can love. You crazy. And if it is owned land, you stole it.
Message.
And so the fact of the matter is that I believe in extreme ownership. That block I live on is my block. This is my city. We put you in those positions. You didn't put yourself there. You're supposed to work for us, not the other way around. And through organization, you're going to feel pain. And so, or you can feel support.
Got it. Brother.
And that's just my mentality.
Well, thanks, brother. If any block clubs or community organizations, community groups wanted to receive some of you guys' training or get some guidance on how they can better protect their communities, how can they get in touch?
Sure, you can reach out to us at info@watchguardchicago.org. Once again, that's info@watchguardchicago.org.
Okay.
And if you want to get in touch with me directly, that's m.mcdonald@watchguard.org. Watchguardchicago.org, excuse me. m.mcdonald@watchguardchicago.org.
Okay, awesome.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. It's been very insightful.
Thank you.
I think we could talk to you much longer in depth about some of the cultural perspectives and village building. The community approach that you've taken as far as with community building, block building is something that is very important, and we could all benefit from that, especially in the Chicagoland area. And that whole notion of shifting values, I think, would be the next step, like through your mentoring program and things like that.
Whenever you need me, let me know.
Absolutely. So there you have it, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will definitely be giving you more information about McDonald and what he has to offer the Chicagoland community. Wow, that was a really great interview. Marquinn really has a lot of information for us to ponder.
Man, the brother has a lot of experiences in self-defense, a lot of knowledge in self-defense, and it's inspirational because it's achievable, it's tangible. Like he's talking about block clubs, like all of us live on a block. All of us could put a note on our neighbor's door and be like, hey, you down to do this?
Right.
So that, to me, to make protecting the community protection that accessible to everybody, and then even for him to have started a organization, a company, to then bring other people into how they could do it, how they can get on board, that's really powerful. So it's very inspiring to me.
Yeah, I'm inspired by the brother too. I mean, it's so simple, you know. The people who's living next door to you or down the street, you should know these people. You guys should be looking out for each other, because, you know, those are the people you're going to be, you know, if anything happens, you know, either they might have been part of the cause, they might be part of the solution, or they might have been just someone who was there standing by and letting things happen when, if we work together, we can, feel a sense of accountability to each other, that if something happened to you live down the street, I feel responsible, like, what could I have done, and then that way we slowly kind of can build the bonds of mutual protection, in this case, respect, accountability. All these things are important.
It's interesting, though, because we did have that in these communities that we're talking about. It's nothing new. Mm-hmm. It's something that we've lost, and it's something we have to revisit, reclaim, and bring back to our communities, because that's where the fear is coming, that's where the anxiety is coming from, is because there's been a breakdown and a loss of community accountability. Mm-hmm. So now, as Kasabez is sharing, like, it doesn't take that much. As Nehez is saying, you can just go to your neighbor and just say, let's get together and rebuild something here. And I think people would be receptive to it. It would be very inviting. In fact, I think our neighbor just the other day, he said, wow, this is the first time I feel like I'm in a neighborhood. And it was just because there were 3 sets of neighbors standing outside just having a regular conversation. Mm-hmm. We've lived in that community for, at least 15 years. And I can honestly say, not proudly say, but honestly say, I don't know many of my neighbors. I have no idea. If I saw them in the grocery store, I wouldn't know them from Adam.
Wow.
Well, you know what else is really interesting right now is that in the news, I heard that the mayor is discontinuing this shot spotter. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
This technology that will hear gunfire, identify gunfire, and then notify the police. Mm-hmm. But when I was growing up, and with my mind reading the books I was reading, what we could all see was that technology was about to take over and take privacy away from everybody. Mm-hmm. And now it's like we're ready for our security to lend it to these type of things that are taking away our security, but it's been such a gradual process that everybody who was standing up against it back when I was young is like, hey, okay, shot spotter is working, half of the time, instead of just being a neighborhood.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like that, a neighborhood protecting itself, a neighborhood watching out for each other, community members being like, I saw your son today, was he okay? Anything like that, just being people. Human. We can protect ourselves like that, but you see how we've kind of been educated to avoid that and then hand away our privacy and be okay with it.
And I wonder what really changed. I mean, when I was younger, maybe that was already kind of going on, but I think maybe partially because I was always outside playing with the other kids in the community, that our parents must have felt like they need to know the parents of the other kids that their kids are playing with. Maybe that has something to do with it, but it's not like, they were having each other over for dinner and all of this type of stuff, but, they seem to at least know each other's names and all of this, like we've come a long way from that. And I'm not excluding myself. I feel like, even me, myself, hearing this brother talk, it makes me feel that same sense of, I guess, guilt, like, okay, I could be doing more, to avoid a future problem or maybe be part of a future solution for some of my neighbors.
Definitely. That's the part, that's the inspiring part of listening to him, because you feel proud of what he's doing, you get strength from it, but then you're like, I need to be doing more.
Right.
And that's great to feel, that's great to see. But also another factor in it too is maybe just that people somehow, it doesn't make sense, don't treat me like I'm saying this because it makes sense, but somehow we rely more on the police, and you can see the whole city relies more on the police. And even, that's one thing that I heard that I liked what our current mayor was saying, is that, you guys talking about more police is not going to solve the problem of crime in Chicago. Like, we got to go to the source and the education and the families and all of that. Because now we rely on the police, so it's like there's no reason to connect with your neighbor and then know, because everybody just calls the police. And I might call the police on my neighbor. Where you can see from Marquinn's upbringing and those who brought him up, his grandma grew up in South Carolina, in a city that's known for lynching. That's the history he was referring to that he didn't really go into. There was many lynchings in that. Can you imagine being family mother, family father, and then watching that's what's happening? How am I going to protect my children? I can't rely on the police because the police are the ones that put hoods on and then go and lynch. I can't rely on the people that are supposed to be protecting the city because they're not protecting me. They're protecting the city from me, or from the idea of me. So you can see that it really brought their family together. And they really function much more like a unit, and so I don't know if that's a factor in how we don't, because now we think that somehow, I don't know how we got it in our mind, because nothing really changed, but somehow we think that we can rely on the police.
Well, we feel like we've been integrated into now the government or whatever the overall social structure. We don't feel like how originally our ancestors must have felt as being captive population. We don't feel like a captive population anymore. We feel like we're part of this, and that we fighting for our rights and all this social justice and all these type of things. So we think that the government's going to be, helping. And, things have definitely changed to a degree. We have a black mayor, whatever. But at the end of the day, you still have to look at the government structure and how it functions. It's not really designed to help everybody when they need help, and definitely, I don't think they even should try to have that capacity when basic things that neighbors can be doing for each other, we're not really doing, but we're asking someone else to do that for us.
And Marquinn just takes his place in a long line of people standing up to take responsibility for that. Like, Fred Hampton and the Panthers who did that, who made sure, we're going to have to organize and defend ourselves, defend our communities, and not just, with guns from violence, but also from hunger, also from, bad education, also from all of that. And you can see that around America in pockets, but it's true. There's also this momentum, this inertia that pushes us the opposite. And that's what, remember, Alan and Tanya were talking about with the crime drought program.
Crime drought.
Right, with crime drought, because it's like they actually benefit from it. So they don't want to stop it. At the end of the day, it's a business for them. So we have to, in the community, stand up, and if we want to stop it, we have to stop it at least from touching our own at the first step, and then extend out from there. So he's really, really inspiring brother, and he takes his place in a long line of defense. That's not just here in the Americas, in the African descendant populations, but also back in Africa, and not just even just in the African descendant populations, because we also have, we took down Cha-Cha. But in the Latino communities, they were doing the same. So
it's something that we really, as he expressed, something that we all have to take accountability for. And that was one thing that stood out to me, is that I was wondering, what inspires you to keep doing this, year after year? And he goes into many territories. He's gone into community organizations, self-defense, really putting a strong hold on being accountable for your own protection and safety, and not feeling just so comfortable. We all, or so many of us, are challenged by the system, but yet and still we're relying upon the same system that we are complaining about. And so it's like, well, if you can't be a complainer and then want to also call the police.
With a hand up.
Yes.
Complaining with a hand up.
Exactly. Right. So it's like the onus does fall back on us to what can we do for ourselves? How do we rebuild our family structures, rebuild our community structures, so we don't have to rely upon anyone outside of our neighbors to help each other out in need.
And there are some also some inspirational examples coming from around the world. We keep talking about the Alliance of Sahelian States. We're not going to go into that again, because you can check out any other of our episodes and we talk about it. But also in the same country of Burkina Faso, where that's kind of centered, there was a situation with the traditional hunters not too long ago, just right before the military coup started. There was a traditionalist in the eastern region of the country who actually grew up with our founder, Master Naba. His name was Django. His name is Django. And he had organized all of the traditional hunters in that region to do just that, kind of in the village setting, in the bush, have block clubs. But these were initiated hunters to where they created a network and then kept an eye out for terrorist activity, kept an eye out for military activity, any kind of criminal activity, and then used that network to get the word back to him, kind of serving as the chief of that network, and then bringing reinforcements of hunters to the spot to immobilize any activity. And that worked so well that it threatened the colonial president before, and they locked him up. They went and locked him up, apprehended him, locked him up, to where then the whole hunter society had to stand up for him, like, hey, he's not doing anything wrong. He's not trying to take your position, because for the politician, they're like, this guy's trying to organize and take power away from me. But his perspective was like, this country's too big, and this country's rural area is too vast for you to think you can handle it just with you, your gendarmerie, your police. You need the people's help. We have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to be responsible for our own communities. And me having this is only a support to you. It's not a threat to you. It's no competition.
Yeah, just like Marquinn said, you know, he works in tandem with the police.
Exactly.
He's not trying to like put them out of jobs or, you know, threaten whatever they're doing or definitely end up in confrontation with them. That's not part of the objective.
Right.
I remember being there in like 2016, 2017. And in Burkina, in Tambiga, in Master Naba's village, the Naba village there. And we were there, I think the first day we were there, we saw a bunch of like motorcycles going past. It was like probably 50. They just kept going. We just saw the lights going past. And I might have been the first one to see it. I started telling people like, look at that. And then everyone started grabbing their machetes and guns, and I'm like grabbing rocks. I don't know what we're gonna have to do if they end up, coming this way. And then nothing ended up happening. Then we went to meet the elder like maybe the next day, and he was like, "Yeah, that was us sending those people."
Right. He was
they freaked us out.
He was letting us know that was him sending his hunters to watch the grounds for us, because he knew we had a group there. So you could just see how powerful that organization of the community is. That organization of the Hunter Society is, and it even grew to be so powerful that they locked him up. They had to let him go because the whole eastern region stood up. The hunters stood up. The family stood up. Like, he's out here doing what you can't do. Why would you stop him?
Right.
Do you have our safety in mind at all? Like, are you gonna lock him up for keeping us safe? What sense does that make? But then even neighboring countries' presidents started. No, they wanted to have meetings with him to see how they could bring similar structures to their place. And then you have another hunter society in the West, which are also, a society of guardians, a society that make it their responsibility to guard their communities, their families, their country. And I think even recently, President Traoré reached out to them to kind of work in tandem with them as well. So you see it happening, in different places, and it's really a model and an example that we have to get on board with, and it's just great to see Marquinn leading that in Chicago. Probably.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just at an event yesterday. It was a Haitian event by Haitians for Haitians. They were telling their Haitian stories of pride about Haitianness, and but they were talking about how they didn't grow up learning about how Haiti was like the first black independent country in the Western Hemisphere, but that when they came to learn about it, it gave them so much pride. But that always stands out to me as like a great example of protecting yourselves against invasions and things of that nature, or against oppression. And we have many examples, of course, of maroon communities in Brazil, South America, Colombia, Jamaica, of course. And you just gave the presentation a couple days ago about the Liptako Gorma region.
In West Africa.
Yeah, West Africa, between Niger, Burkina, and Mali, where they have kind of like a region that was never properly colonized by the French. You know, like they never really, like, if you look on the map, it looks like all that territory is occupied, but in reality, it's not really any government forces over there managing that region, and it more so functions autonomously according to its tradition. So we have all these type of examples of resistance, and I think it's important to be highlighting those, because I think, it's not that we don't know that something's wrong, but I think a lot of times we think, oh, there's nothing we can do. And then with that kind of defeatist mindset, then we end up just like complacent in our houses waiting for someone to come get us,
Yeah, we have to highlight it, and Chicago Sunnyside is highlighting it for you, shining light on it, because it's for us to do. Like we said, like so many people are realizing, Healthy Hood and the other organizations that participated in Crime Drought. Marquinn was talking about it too. It's profitable. Yeah. It's profitable for the system. We are a prison industrial complex in this country now. So it's profitable. They don't want to not have criminals. They need criminals to keep this engine going. Just like they needed slaves to keep the engine going, a few centuries ago. They need criminals now.
Just like they need illegal migrants.
So if we see ourselves, we'll get to that. We'll come back to that.
That's another topic we're gonna come bring you in probably a few more episodes.
Yeah, but if we see ourselves as valuable enough, and our families as valuable enough to be protected, then we gotta protect them. As valuable enough to stay out of prison, we gotta do it. As valuable enough to stay out of gunfire, we have to stand up and do it. So, the Sunnyside will be here doing it for the next few episodes for this series. We plan on talking to both sides. We'll talk to some ex-police officers if we can. We will talk to some other organizations that are out here in the community, trying not only to protect each other from violence, but also to bring the aid that we need when violence happens, and also to, in all of the different facets that we have to protect ourselves. So we will be looking around the city, shining the light around the city, and looking for where the light is being reflected. So.
Well, before we wrap up the episode, I was wanting to get your thoughts on Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. If you guys don't know, he's the president of Russia, and this guy, he used to be a Fox News host, and now he started his own. They fired him apparently last year, and then he started his own little network on Twitter, and he's got a website now with Tucker Carlson. He's whatever, probably one of these conservative people. I'm not saying that he's part of our crew over here, you know what I'm saying? But whatever he's doing and talking about is shaking up the media landscape, and I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's taking his position as a journalist serious, and journalism and press is what changes society, and that is inspiring to see, no matter which side of politics he may be on. When you see a person willing to do the interviews other people aren't willing to do,
willing to talk to people other people say you're not supposed to talk to,
right.
Hear perspectives that they say that you shouldn't hear, I think it's important, because if there's a big conflict that our politicians are ready to get us embroiled in, that can affect all of us, that can kind of shake the whole world based on the implications of a war between the U.S. and Russia. I mean, I think we deserve to hear both sides of the story, and and the fact that he took it upon himself to go get that done, I think is I think is admirable.
One thing I liked about it, which will be the last thing I say about it, was, I mean, Putin is just is an intelligent guy. Not intelligent because I agree with everything he does or is doing. I don't know enough. I'm not in Russia, so whatever I'm gonna find out is just gonna be what the media brings me. But Putin made that point, and he was making that point like, the American propaganda machine presents things one way, and it almost seemed like in the interview, Tucker Carlson was coming to some of those realizations, like, wow, that is how it was presented to us. And that, I like that aspect of the interview, and that's why I can't even have any opinion on someone like Putin or someone like any leader outside of our country, because this is politics, and politics runs media just like politics runs all aspects of our life. So if we think we get a good idea of where somebody's standing, what somebody's really trying to do, or even what they do from a media machine that we all know is there, with its
fake news. Well, but the last thing I wanted to say about the, not so much the interview, but some of Tucker Carlson's commentary outside the interview, he was mentioning how he visited different places in Moscow, including like a train station. He was showing footage from the train station and how immaculate it was compared to what we see in our train stations here in the U.S. Like people, if you go get on the Red Line in Chicago, we have one of our sisters here who's not from the U.S. and recently she's been having to ride public transportation, and they're smoking weed on the bus, and they're on the train. The homeless people they're using it as their perfect personal living space. And you look at that video of the train station in Moscow, and it's like they have these immaculate paintings that look like they're probably a couple centuries old, you know what I mean? And it's like they're not defaced. They have very ornate, just wood, I don't know if it's woodwork or stonework carvings of the trim of the corridors and stuff like that. It's like, you don't see graffiti. It's not being knocked apart. People take pride in it and they take care of their stuff. And he was just saying, this is just an indication of the quality maybe of the type of society being administered here compared to what we have in the United States lately. And it just is another way of to me remind me that it's not just what people say that counts. It's not like whatever people might say about Russia versus US, and which one has the better social model. You can also look at certain indicators like
proof,
how they take care of their stuff, how they take care of each other. What is the different things like the violence, the whatever crime rates that you might have.
Do neighbors know each other?
Do neighbors know each other? All these type of things can indicate what type of society that you live in. It's not just to say, oh, we're democratic, so we're better. Everyone gets to choose. We have freedom, so we're better. Even though we have all these indicators that, we're not free in all these different areas. Like, oh, you're not even supposed to go talk to Vladimir Putin because we don't want to, or you don't talk to Donald Trump, or even talking to Tucker Carlson, I think got some journalists blackballed before because you're supposed to be a liberal and you're going to talk to Tucker Carlson.
Right. Yeah, I heard that. I was laughing because the sister came home complaining about the Red Line, and all I had to say to her was, wait till you ride subways in New York. That's probably part of the problem, comparing down. Anyhow, it's been great.
Well, Giziribtah, you haven't spoken in a while. What do you think about all of these things?
Well, it's interesting. It's very difficult for me to get into too many of the political arena, only because one, my perspective on the government itself as an institution is just very challenging. So whether you're talking about the U.S. government, the Russian government, Democratic, Republican, this, that, and the other, to me, honestly, I just see it's like two sides of the same coin.
They're all just full of crap.
They're all just mafias that are really in place to keep people in control. Are they going to keep them in control via violence, with carrots, with guns, sticks, whatever it is? They're going to do what they have to do in order to put people in check.
Absolutely.
It's only humanity, it's only civilization, it's only our own individual quality that's going to determine how a society ultimately is. It's like it's more people than there are governments. There's more people than there are institutions. But if the people are just silent and quiet, kind of like I am, in a sense, and just being complacent and just allowing the governments to dictate, allowing the crime to just run rampant, allowing just society to just be however it's going to be, and you just sit on the sidelines, you only get change if you get involved. And that is what we really hope, that even this podcast will help people to get involved and see that there are many things that we can do to assist even the institutions, assist each other, assist families in rebuilding the world we want to see. So that's why I'm not too enthusiastic about debating the political arena per se, but I am very inspired by those who are on the outskirts and see that we need change. We need to improve. We need to come together. I'm very motivated and inspired to do all of that, and that's why I'm sitting between two of my teachers who have been just very instrumental in ensuring that this body of knowledge gets, pushed and shared with the greater community at large.
Well, I think that's a great message to close this episode on, and we'll be seeing you next time on the sunny side of the street. Peace to everybody.
Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.